The monster next door. The Jeffrey Dahmer story. Imagine living in a quiet apartment building. Every day you see the same neighbor. He looks normal, speaks politely, and never causes trouble. Nothing about him seems dangerous. But what if behind that apartment door was one of the most horrifying criminals in American history? This is the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, a man who managed to hide terrifying crimes for more than a decade before finally being caught in 1991. His case shocked the entire United States and remains one of the most infamous criminal investigations ever. Jeffrey Dahmer was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1960. People who knew him during childhood often described him as quiet and withdrawn. As he grew older, he became increasingly isolated. Friends later recalled that he struggled socially and often seemed disconnected from the people around him. In 1978, shortly after graduating from high school, Dahmer committed his first known murder. The victim was 18-year-old Stephen Hicks. This crime remained unknown for years because nobody connected Dahmer to it at the time. After the killing, life appeared to continue normally on the surface, allowing him to avoid suspicion. Over the following years, Dahmer moved between jobs and residences. To outsiders, he seemed like an ordinary person trying to get through life. But investigators later discovered that he was leading a double life. Behind closed doors, he was committing increasingly serious crimes while successfully avoiding detection. One of the most disturbing aspects of the case was how long he remained unnoticed. Many serial killers operate by blending into society, and Dahmer was a perfect example. Neighbors described him as quiet. Co-workers often viewed him as reserved but harmless. No one imagined the truth hidden behind his apartment door. As the years passed, victims continued to disappear. Investigators would later determine that Dahmer targeted numerous young men and boys between 1978 and 1991. The full scale of his crimes would not become clear until after his arrest. Perhaps the most shocking part of the story is how close authorities came to stopping him earlier. There were incidents that raised concerns. There were opportunities where warning signs existed. Yet somehow, Dahmer continued operating without being permanently stopped. Critics later argued that mistakes and missed opportunities allowed the situation to continue much longer than it should have. Everything finally changed during the summer of 1991. On July the 22nd, 1991, a man named Tracy Edwards escaped from Dahmer and managed to attract police attention. Edwards led officers back to Dahmer's apartment. What officers discovered inside would horrify even experienced investigators. As police searched the apartment, they found evidence connecting Dahmer to multiple murders. The discovery immediately transformed what appeared to be a routine police encounter into one of the biggest criminal investigations in American history. Officers realized they had uncovered something far more disturbing than anyone expected. News of the arrest spread rapidly across the United States. Television networks interrupted programming. Newspapers placed the story on front pages. Millions of Americans were stunned by the details emerging from the investigation. How could such crimes remain hidden for so long? How could someone appear so ordinary while secretly committing such horrific acts? These were questions people struggled to answer. During questioning, Dahmer confessed to numerous crimes. Investigators spent countless hours gathering evidence and reconstructing the timeline of events. As more information emerged, the case became even more shocking. Prosecutors ultimately linked him to 17 murders committed over a period of approximately 13 years. The trial attracted enormous media attention. Reporters from across the country filled the courtroom. The defense argued that Dahmer suffered from severe mental problems, while prosecutors argued that he understood his actions and should be held fully responsible. After hearing testimony and reviewing evidence, the jury found him legally sane and guilty. The court sentenced him to multiple life sentences, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life in prison. For many families of the victims, however, no sentence could erase the pain and loss they had experienced. The emotional impact of the case extended far beyond the courtroom. Even after the trial ended, the public remained fascinated by the case. Books, documentaries, television programs, and investigative reports attempted to understand how Dahmer became one of America's most notorious criminals. Experts examined his background, his behavior, and the failures that allowed him to avoid capture for so many years. In 1994, while serving his sentence in prison, Dahmer was attacked by another inmate and died from his injuries. His death ended the story of the killer himself, but it did not end public interest in the case. More than 3 decades later, people still study the investigation as an example of how dangerous criminals can sometimes hide behind an appearance of normality. The Jeffrey Dahmer case remains one of the most disturbing crime stories in American history. It is remembered not only because of the crimes themselves, but also because it revealed how easily appearances can deceive. A quiet neighbor, a polite conversation, an ordinary apartment. Behind all of it was a secret that shocked an entire nation. And that is why, decades later, the name Jeffrey Dahmer is still remembered as one of the most infamous names in the history of American crime.